that we teach athletes the personal and professional skills in order to be successful in the NIL game.
Welcome to the Winning Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Schwartzman. I'm a family man, a coach, a wannabe athlete. After earning 3 master's degrees and countless certifications, I've decided that podcasting is how I'm going to continue my education in all things wellness, longevity, and performance. Join me to learn along.
I was a former television news anchor. For the last 10 years, I've worked for Fox, but I've worked for all the major news networks, Fox, NBC, ABC, and CBS over my almost 20 years in the business. My husband has a background of athletic administration. So he was an athletic director at a really sports-centric private high school here in Southeast Milwaukee, Southeast Wisconsin, I should say. And so he knows very much kind of the politics of athletics and everything that kind of goes into that. And then I come from the side of communication, professional presence, having a very public personal brand and what that entails and how to build that with authenticity as well as with high integrity. And we always wanted to have something of our own and start something. And I've always been very entrepreneurial. And so when NIL came about 3.5 years ago, we just paid very close attention as to what was happening. I was also a former athlete. I was a former figure skater. So I know what it's like to be very elite and all the dedication and sacrifice that goes into that. And so we started noticing kind of a gap in the marketplace, that being number one, female athletes were being really underserved because a lot of your major universities care about the 2 money-making sports, those being football and men's basketball. Understandably so, right? I mean, a university is a business. We get it.
Yeah.
But also, when it came to NIL, there's so much misconception because people see what's in the media. And I know this, being in the media, we put things that are shiny up there, right? And so the 6-7-figure deals, the transfer portal chaos and all of that. And so we started recognizing that most athletes, if they're not the number one recruited quarterback in the country going to Alabama, think that they don't really have an opportunity when it comes to NIL, especially at your D2 and D3 levels. They think, oh, that's just for your D1 superstars. When in reality, we have a saying in our company, NIL is not something that happens to you. It's something you now have the opportunity to take advantage of if you know how and if you want to. There's a lot of athletes who don't want to have anything to do with that, and that's totally fine. But in order to be marketable and successful as an athlete, beyond just being good at your sport, you have to develop other skill sets. And so that's what we really identified as a big gap in a lot of these athletes' development that wanted to take advantage of this really great opportunity NIL presents, but have no idea on how to do that. And so that's what we do. We teach them how to do that so that they're the whole package, so that they are marketable, so that they can navigate NIL safely and successfully.
Interesting. I know. And gosh, how long has NIL been around? Is it 3 years?
3.5 years. Yeah.
Okay.
It was June of 2021 when it was passed.
Yeah. Even so, like my Division II, I was just at another university at Lindenwood University. They were Division II. They were transitioning into Division I right around that same time. And all of a sudden I've got like some of my gymnasts have like, they're getting dresses for free. And my football players, he's getting like electrolytes for free, and they're that athlete that you just described. They reached out and they made it happen. So
and that's how a lot of deals start, is they start with free or discounted products or services. It's not going to be some massive deal with Nike to start off, unless you are the number one recruited quarterback in the country. That's just not the reality of it, even though that's what the media kind of paints the picture as. And so for these athletes, we teach them, look, don't poo-poo getting free or discounted products or services because you're a poor college student. And so that's a good thing. And then you execute on that. You show that you can help drive ROI. That next deal is going to be that much more lucrative for you. You've stacked a half dozen or a dozen of these together, you can make yourself a pretty penny and get amazing professional experience while you're doing it.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just those small little benefits. It's like I think the Japanese term is like kaizen, is that you just take little baby help where you can get it, and then it has like an exponential benefit. So
Yeah.
when I have athletes and they're not eating as well as they could, because at this level we don't have a training table. We don't have that thing where you walk out the weight room and then you walk into basically like a four-star restaurant that's all you can eat.
Mhm.
We need all those little advantages that we can get our hands on.
Every 1% counts, right? You
Yeah,
do 1% better every single day for a whole year. What do they say? You end up getting like 50% better or something like that,
that's
right?
right. That's right.
Yeah.
You're moving in the right direction. I don't know what the exact math is, but
Right, right.
I won't embarrass myself with
No.
screwing up the math right now. Um, so shifting into influential athlete, um, what what are some of the victories that you guys have won so far, and what direction you guys taken things?
So when we originally launched the company, we had it in our minds that we're going to work solely with just one-on-one athletes, private coaching for females specifically. And we've done a lot of that, D1, D2, D3, as well as a bunch of high school athletes as well. What we've realized, and I feel like this is what happens when you start a company that's niche and also there's no one else doing what you're doing, is the needs start coming to you, being like, hey, can you help us with this? Or do you guys do this? And so that's a direction that we're starting to branch into, is institutional partnerships. So for example, here in Wisconsin, every state has a high school athletic association that governs high school sports in that state, right? Here in Wisconsin, it's called the WIAA. It's the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association. And so we're partnered with them as their exclusive NIL educator, because Wisconsin is one of only 10 states that does not allow high schoolers to monetize their NIL yet. It's about to change. It will likely change next month when a big vote is happening, but it's only a matter of time for it to change for every state across the board, because the Supreme Court's already ruled the way that it has. It says you can't limit an American citizen's right to make money off of themselves, right? It's called the right to publicity. And so we have now been educating all of the 514 member high schools in the state of Wisconsin on what this new NIL language means, how, as athletic directors, their responsibilities when this comes to fruition. You know, they're not managing or facilitating deals like what happens kind of at the college level, but more or less, you know, they have to educate their student athletes and families. They have to report violations when they're made aware of them, and what the repercussions are if they don't end up passing it at the state level, those two being litigation and or legislation. And so we've started to now partner directly with a lot of the high schools as well as entire conferences, because they know it's going to pass and they're like, oh no, we don't know what to do in this space. We're not experts here. We need to it's our responsibility to educate our student athletes and families. And so they're contracting with us, and we remove that administrative burden for them. We provide the education for the student athletes and families. We provide all of the resources that they populate an NIL tab on their website so that they can direct people to kind of a centralized hub when they have questions. We're on retainer access for them to ask questions when they get those questions asked of them and they don't know how to answer them. And so that started to develop. And then now we're stepping into the university realm, where we're starting to more or less do the same thing at the university level, but we have a new licensing program where what we do with our private athletes, which is put them through our signature program, which is called Influential Athlete Academy, where we get them up to speed very fast. They don't have 6 months to spend with me. It's very fast, but we're driving wonderful results with them. I mean, they're getting deals before they even finish the 4-week academy. And so we wanted to figure out how can we replicate that versus just doing one-off workshops for colleges. How can we replicate Influential Athlete Academy in our private one-on-one coaching with me to kind of a mass level, to 700 athletes at a university or an association? And so we've developed this licensing model where we've put it into a custom portal for each institution that we're contracting with. And The administrators have a whole dashboard. They can see all the athletes who are registered for it. They can see their progress through the course. And the idea is for them to get themselves through the academy, which is 40 plus videos going through the entire process that I do with my private clients, all through like really manageable and applicable videos. And then we hold an in-person kind of culmination masterclass at the end at the university or at the association, where we take all of the work that they've done on building their personal brand, what that core message is, identifying their unique attributes other than just being an amazing athlete, the charitable work that they want to do in terms of using their platform for doing good. And we help them put it all together into an NIL pitch presentation that they then have this tangible thing to start sending to businesses to pitch themselves for potential partnerships. Yeah. And so that's proven to be really successful for us, because the value that we're providing with our private coaching, we're now able to do at scale for large organizations that have a bunch of athletes in there, right? I'm only one person. I can't privately coach all of them. So this is a way that we're able to do that, and it's been really great.
So there's the model where you go in and you talk to the administrators and they partner with you all, they invest, and then they're able to have the education with the graduation ceremony.
Yeah. At the end. So like normally it would be, so that's what I was talking to one of those D2 university ADs this morning. We had coffee this morning and we were talking through all this. So, you know, and it's kind of their choice. You could do it for your athletes during their off season. You could do it for your athletes during their in season. Whatever you feel is best for your specific athletes in your programs, I leave that up to them to make that decision. That's on them. But say it's 3 months that they're given access to Influential Athlete Academy, the digital course. They know that at the end, they're working towards something, and they have to have kind of their body of work to bring to that final masterclass to put it all together so that they can walk away with this really amazing presentation that they can then start sending out to businesses. And we teach them what to say and how to say it and all the good stuff too. Yeah. So it's not just the what of like, oh, this is what NIL is. This is what a personal brand is. It's how you actually do it and how you actually implement it so that they can start driving results very quickly.
Yeah. Action oriented.
Oh yeah. It's interactive. It's fun. It's not like a boring course that you're taking. Like these kids, they have a ton of fun, you know, because it's all about them. A lot of it's very, you know, they do like a lot of self-assessments and this deep look inside and try to pull out the other value and the other identities that they do have that they don't realize, because the only thing they've ever identified as is a volleyball player or a soccer player, or, you know, so it helps to kind of fill the gap that ends up existing for every athlete. And I experienced this for myself when it came time when I got really injured and I couldn't play my sport anymore. And I just had a girl this morning who emailed me looking for a job because she's a D1 basketball player. She's never had an internship. She's never had a summer job. She has no professional experience because her sport was her thing. And she had no time to do anything else except her sport. Now her eligibility is over. And she's like, I don't know what to do next because I have nothing. I have no other value to give to the world because my whole identity was being a basketball player. And it's like, well, see, that's the work we do in the academy, is help you identify that value while you're still competing, get you that professional experience using NIL as our catalyst. So when your playing days do come to an end, whether it's by choice, injury, or eligibility, you're set to be a superstar at your next level of life. And you don't go through that couple of year period where you just feel lost and feel like you have no sense of direction.
Okay. And what if it's like Johnny or Sally and their school doesn't want to invest in it? Can they reach out as an individual, or is it usually bucketed in with the whole squad?
Oh no. So we started with private coaching, and so we still do tons of private coaching. So they can either work with me privately, one-on-one, which is a higher cost, obviously, because it's very, you know, time on task and they're working directly with me. They can also purchase, if they want, our digital course themselves, which is available for them to purchase on their own, or they can go through their institution if their institution is investing in it.
Okay.
Yeah. So they have the option absolutely to work with us individually. That's how we started. We've just branched out into these other areas because we've identified a need, or people have come knocking on our door being like, can you do this for us? So.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, when you get started, what do you have, like some success stories, or who was that first athlete that you sort of helped bridge the gap? Whether you can say their name or not, or whoever.
Yeah, I'll just give you a first name because we do keep everything really private. But first name, her name is Claire. She's a golfer at Vanderbilt. She was one of honestly, our first beta test clients. So before we launched the company in October, we were beta testing athletes, D1, D2, D3, as well as high schoolers, because we wanted to make sure when we brought our product to market, our Influential Athlete Academy, that it was good and it was driving the value we promised. It was driving the results that we promised. And it wasn't just like, oh, let's try it out. I think it's good. Let's see if it actually works. Yeah. We wanted to make sure that we actually had something that was very much refined. And so we spent about a year beta testing athletes. And with her, and this, like I tell all athletes, her first deal started small. It started with getting a box of sweatshirts from a female-focused apparel company that was creating like college sweatshirts, but for more like female bodies and, things like that. And they sent her 6 free sweatshirts to kind of coincide with the launch of this new line that they were doing. She did so many social media posts and they loved it. People used her link, right? It's an affiliate deal. So, hey, use my link for 20% off. Well, they can track that, right? That's data. And that's a great way to start with NIL because the company can actually see how many times your link was used. And so with that, her link was used a bunch of times. The company saw they were getting an ROI on it. It turned into a more lucrative deal. And now she's garnered other deals because she was able to use that first deal and show other businesses, hey, look, I might only be 18 years old, but I know how to be professional. I executed on this. This is what I put out there. What would you consider potentially partnering with me on a marketing campaign for your business or brand? And she has something to show for it. And so that's how the snowball starts. The hardest thing is getting that first deal.
Yeah.
And so once you can get that first deal and show that you can be professional and execute the way that you said and really go above and beyond, exceeding expectations, that's great to kind of show other businesses, and then you get that snowball going.
As you're talking to me about this and knowing a little bit about your athletic background, how similar do you feel like this is to maybe picking up a new sport or joining a new team? Is that you learn the fundamentals and the basics, and then you escalate, you grow your portfolio of skills and everything like that. And do you communicate it in that fashion? Is that it's not that different from your sport? It's just a new game.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, our whole tagline is that we teach athletes the personal and professional skills in order to be successful in the NIL game, because that's what it is. It's a game. Yeah. Business is also a game, right? And so it's just a matter of utilizing different skill sets. So one of the things when we start going through the Influential Athlete Academy, we build with foundational knowledge in terms of like compliancy, because at the end of the day, if you're not compliant, you're no longer an athlete, and that's not good. We don't want that. But then we get into, look, you're going to have to develop new skills. That's why you're here. You're probably not going to be great at a lot of them to begin with. You probably don't even know what great is. And so we teach something called the 4 levels of skill development, which has been around for a really long time. And to be honest with you, I couldn't even find who was the original person who talked about the 4 levels of skill development. But what they are, and they can be applied to anything, whether you're learning how to tie your shoe, play guitar, learn to ice skate, whatever. Every person, when they're learning a new skill, has to go through all 4 levels of skill development. The first level is unconscious incompetence. That is, you have no idea how good or bad you are at the thing because you have no point of reference. You have no idea how good you are or how bad you are because you don't even know what good looks like. So that's unconscious incompetence. That's level 1. Level 2 is conscious incompetence, where you now know what good looks like and you know you're not it, right? But now you're aware because you have points of reference of like, oh yeah, that person's really good. Definitely not there yet. The third level is conscious competence, where you know what good looks like and you're also pretty good. But it takes work to stay there. It takes a lot of focus to stay there. And then the final level of skill development is unconscious competence, where you've been doing the thing for so long that you don't even have to think about being good at it because you're great at it. It's become part of you because you've been practicing and executing on it for so long. And so when I talk to these girls about, working on their, as simple as eye contact, or how to speak on camera without using like all these other filler words that make them sound really immature and unprofessional, I talk to them about, okay, think about the first time you ever picked up a volleyball. You probably had no idea how to even get it over the net other than just chuck it or like smack it. Now you don't think about that anymore because you know exactly what to do because you've been doing it for so long. You know how to serve a volleyball because you've been doing it. You don't even think about it at this point. But try to remember back when you did that the first time. You got it over the net and you're like, oh, I must be great. No, you're not, right? That's unconscious incompetence. You have no idea what good looks like because you have no point of reference. So I help them realize, and my goal for them once they finish the academy is not to get them to that final and fourth level, because that takes time. And that's time that they have to put in order to master these things. My goal is to get them to the second level, which is conscious incompetence, where they know what good looks like now. They know where they need to be now, and they realize they're probably not there yet. But they're pretty close to that third step because they're working their way there. But it's on them to practice the skills they learn because everything we teach is behavioral. And I can't tap them on the head and make them better at speaking or better at communicating or, better at posting on social media. I can't do that for them. That's something that they have to create a habit out of, and they only can do that by consistency.
Do you have examples of athletes who are out there that you say to help elevate them from level 1 to level 2? Do you say, go look at his or her page, look at all these posts and things that they're doing? And is there anybody that you would maybe tell listeners to go check out?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of people who are doing a really great job when it comes to social media. One thing that I teach about social media, first of all, is consistency when it comes to that, right? You also can't just be posting whatever, whenever. You have to start using social media as a business tool. Because when you call them or send them an email, what are they going to do? They're going to Google you. And they're probably going to go to your social media page. And you have 3 seconds to capture their attention, because that apparently is the attention span these days, which is pathetic, but it's true. And so we have to work with what we got. So you want to make sure your bio's optimized, that there's a clear picture of who you are, not you and your boyfriend, not you and your friend, not you and your family, but your name, so they know they've landed on the right page, who you are and what you do, what makes you awesome, Gatorade Player of the Year, MVP, blah, 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 whatever, right? And then what they can expect from your page. So this is what you should be consistently posting about. Your social media themes is like we call, and usually 3 to 5. Because if you look at people who are really big time influencers and making money through social media, they're not just posting whatever, whenever. You probably follow specific accounts for the specific value they're providing to you. Because social media, when you start using it like a business tool, it's not for you anymore. You're now providing for your audience, and you need to give your audience what they expect. And so if you're following a vintage car person and they start posting about their shopping list at Trader Joe's, you're gonna be like, what is going on? I don't follow this person for this. There's a very specific reason you follow that account. So what is your reason that people should follow you? Because that's how you're going to grow. And then it comes down to consistency, because you have to be providing consistent content for them.
And then not so much today, but in researching you a little bit, male versus female athletes, are you giving them the same spiel, or do they have the same opportunities? Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
So when it comes to our private coaching with just me, I only work with females. And there's a reason for that. They are incredibly underserved in the NIL marketplace, and they make really awesome brand partners. At 17, 18, 19 years old, and this is not across the board, but they're a little bit more mature than the guys. They're a little bit more engaged. They care a little bit more. And again, I've worked with some really great guys. So again, this is not across the board. There are certainly exceptions to this. But there was a big gap in terms of serving females. And so when it comes to me working one-on-one in our private high-ticket coaching, I only work with females. When it comes to working with institutions, obviously, I work with both male and female. But our messaging is a little different. So when it comes to like our licensing option, when a school decides to contract with us and they say, we want our 500 athletes to have access to Influential Athlete Academy. If they're a guy, they get the boy version. If they're a girl, they get the girl version. It's the same information. It's just delivered a little differently because certain things hit with girls different than they hit with guys. I talk about social media with girls differently than I talk about social media with guys, because it only takes one post for a girl to tank her credibility if she's going after those clickbait posts, right? There's a really very successful NIL female athlete out there, probably the most. A lot of her stuff is very clickbaity. And so I'm not the one to decide whether or not you want to dip your toe into being promiscuous and things like that. That's up to you to decide. But I teach that you want your credibility to be high. You want to be an asset, not a potential liability to companies. And you want to be respected. And so with guys, they don't really have to deal with that. It's a different world for guys than it is for girls. And maybe it's not fair. You know, it's not fair, but that's the reality that we live in. And so I have to speak to that as a mother, but also as somebody who, you know, has witnessed that and it destroy people's credibility. You know, I still am a public personal brand because of what I did in my background with TV. And there's a very fine line. And if you cross that, it's really hard to cross back over because it takes one post to tank your reputation, but it takes years to build that. You know what I mean? So there's a little bit of difference in messaging, but the content we teach is the same because it's the fundamentals, right? It's the knowledge of NIL, the whole space, how to determine why you want to pursue this. Like, what is your reason for wanting to put time and effort into that? That's a really important question to be able to answer because when you face rejection, when you face a setback or something like that, that reason is going to be what motivates you to keep going regardless. Everyone can have a personal brand. I don't care if you're a guy or a girl, right? Building it's a little bit differently, but not really. Personal presence in terms of your body language, how you speak to people, how you perform on camera. Girls and guys both need that. A little bit different though. So we teach it differently, but again, yeah, the same information.
You just listed like maybe one or two things that can lead your account astray and sink the ship a little bit. On the other side of that coin, one or two things that you think that if you haven't mentioned them, you've probably said it 3 times already to me,
Okay.
but I'm not too bright. Sometimes I need to hear it for a 4th time. If those are the things that kind of like you send up one post and it really takes away from all the other work you're doing, is there one post that helps things shine, or is it just sticking with your consistency and within your brain like you were talking about earlier?
I think everyone has knowledge that they think is invaluable because to them it's second nature. To them it's, oh, well, duh, everybody knows that. No, everybody doesn't know that. And so if you can consistently provide value, and if you look at my social media, I talk about how to make eye contact, how to shake hands the right way, how to use your voice appropriately, how to find businesses to pitch to. For me, that's like, well, doesn't everybody know that? You know, but then the feedback I get from people, like even people in TV, when I talk about, you know, the different ways to use your voice and to pause to really make an impact, or to speed up to add energy, or to change up your tone. in certain situations. Even people who I've worked with in TV for 20 years are like, keep putting those social media posts. I'm getting so much value out of them. I'm trying to apply. And I'm like, really? You know, even a professional in that space. And so I think for people to really identify what they're good at, what they love, what they're passionate about outside of their sport, and lean into it, provide that value consistently. And you'll be amazed at the people behind the screen that you're actually helping. And that garners the connection, right? And that's what we're looking for, is that engagement from people.
About the future a little bit. With your own, you said you're as a mother, as a parent,
Yeah.
and I've got a couple of kiddos too, ages almost 7 and 5. If you look to their future, maybe they're going to be athletes, maybe they're not. Maybe you've got them out on the ice every morning. Who knows?
Oh no, I won't let any of my kids skate. Not
Um,
what I went through.
so whatever they're into, if they're into anything, what conversation, and maybe you can share what age range they're in so that people
Sure.
can like get some perspective. How are you steering the ship for them so that maybe this is an opportunity for them down the road?
Yeah, so my kids, I have 3 of them. My oldest son is 11. My daughter is almost 7 in a couple of weeks. And then my youngest son is 3. And so my oldest son is really big into basketball and volleyball. My daughter does gymnastics, starting soccer. I mean, she's 7, so she's kind of just like, I let her do whatever, you know, dance if she wants to. And then my 3-year-old, well, he's just crazy and throws trucks. So, but what it comes down to, and being in the professional world for 20 years at this point, the one thing that I've learned that's the most valuable skill that you can have, I don't care if you're a doctor, a lawyer, a chef, athletic trainer, is leadership. And what that actually means to be a leader and to lead others and influence them in a positive way. The reason the name of our company is Influential Athlete is not to develop influencers on social media, but it's to teach athletes how to become influential within their community, to be identified as leaders in their community who promote change in a positive direction or support people in their community who need it. And so I, number one, always teach my children from a very young age, like we go to a restaurant, I'm not ordering their food for them. They're ordering their food. They can speak, they can talk to the waitress or the waiter and order their food, saying please and saying thank you, looking them in the eye. These are those micro skills that I especially feel like with these younger generations, and even with my generation of being a millennial, get lost. You know, these were skills that I think were really ingrained in older generations because it was kind of just the way of life. But we have, and younger people have such limited interactions with people of authority nowadays because so much is virtual or on the computer or whatever, that simple exposure to that is lacking. And so, you know, when we have a restaurant chain here in Milwaukee, I don't know if you guys have it there in Missouri, called Culver's. Okay, it's like
My
the
wife
best.
loves that place.
Yeah, it's the best fast food place ever, right? They make fresh everything. Well, when you get a kid's meal, there's a ticket on the bag where you can go up and get a free scoop of custard afterwards. So I'm not going up to the counter with them. I mean, you better believe I have eyes on them, right? I'm not just like letting my children wander, but they're going up to the counter at the age of 4, 5, 6, saying, can I please have 1 scoop of vanilla with sprinkles on it, and handing their ticket. Because I think that that instills, number one, leadership abilities that you can continue to stack, which compounds, but it also promotes confidence because they learn that they can do these things and that they're not going to die, right? And I know that some kids are more fearful of speaking up, or, they're more introverted. And I understand that, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. It's a matter of getting practice doing it. And so in these small situations as a parent, I can start helping to promote those skill sets being developed, if that helps answer your question a little bit. And then as they get older, it's a matter of when we have friends come over to our house. Like last night, we had one of our good friends who's doing some consulting work for us come to our house. They walk over and they say, hi, Mr. Wendell, how are you doing? Thanks for coming over. They greet them. They're not just sitting there watching TV or playing in the other room. I mean, they go back and they do what they need to do so we can have an adult conversation. But it's those tiny little micro skills that you can start helping them apply as a young kid that only get better and better as they get older. And you can start adding more responsibility onto that as they get older.
Piggybacking off of that, if you have an 11-year-old, in a few years, they're in high school, which is now potentially going to be in the NIL area. How about for that younger age and social media presence and freedom and risks and dangers? Any input or advice? Maybe what you're doing company-wide or just in your own household?
So my husband and I have made the decision that our kids won't have cell phones until they're 16. Now, I will say my son has a watch that has an app on my phone where he can only have like 10 contacts that I determine. So he can, when he's at basketball, he can text, hey, I'm done, or hey, we're running over. He has no friends on there, nothing like that. There's no apps you can put on it or anything. So we can communicate. At some point, we'll probably have like a house cell phone, that a kid, they can take with them, but it's not their personal device. Because social media is so much a part of NIL, and I get that. But I truly believe, and I'm not saying that this is God's word. I mean, every parent has their own right to do what they want to do. And I have no judgment on that. I'm just speaking for what me and my husband have decided for our children, is that social media has a place at some point when I feel like they're mature enough to be able to navigate it. And also emotionally mature enough for me to be able to have real conversations with them about the trials and tribulations that come of it. I saw this hysterical thing on Instagram yesterday, speaking of social media. And then his dad, it was some meme, and he was putting up his kids' artwork, like finger painting on the fridge with magnets. And he's like, I'm getting my kids ready for social media. I write mean comments under all their artwork. And because that's the reality of it. I mean, I get mean things said to me. I have a whole post on social media about how you try to let these things roll off your back, but it bothers you because it makes you second guess yourself. And I get that. And so I think there's a time and a place for it with social media. But I think, especially when they're younger, it's up to us as parents to help them navigate that space very safely once they start kind of dipping their toes into it. And for me, I'm going to take that business approach. And this is what I teach to all the students that I work with. And I work with high schoolers who don't have social media, and their parents like, what should we do? Should we get them? And I said, I do think that you should get them social media at some point when you feel like they're ready and you are ready as a parent, but they're not using this to socialize. They're using this as a business tool. And that's a very big distinction to make with the accounts you're following, what you're looking at, what are you feeding your brain with? Because that narrative is going to feed your brain. If that's toxic stuff, you're going to think toxic stuff. So you need to make sure that you're feeding yourself with positive influences and not bad ones.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing that from my family to yours. Thanks for sharing. I'm always looking for.
And again, like no judgment, honestly.
Yeah.
If your 13-year-old already has social media, I'm not judging you for it, but that's just my perspective.
No, we fear this. You're talking about making this thing into a tool, but somebody has a saying somewhere. There's a very thin line between a tool and a weapon.
Oh,
and
no question.
For when it spirals out of control, there's too much time on it. It's you're taking things in that are making you think negatively, or you're envious of all the comparisons. It's a weapon, right? Your company is helping people turn it into a tool. which I love big time. Before I shift gears with some more questions, is there anything that I haven't asked you regarding influential athlete that I should have asked you?
I think that when it comes to NIL, it still gives a lot of people a bad taste in their mouth. And I get it, because it can be chaotic. It can be a money grab. There are bad actors out there, just like when any new industry pops up and there's money to be made, people come out of the woodwork. I think it's an incredible opportunity for athletes to, yes, make some money from all of their dedication and sacrifice that they've put into their sport and training for as long as they have. That's an amazing piece. But that's only a piece of it. I really think the true beauty of NIL and the opportunity it presents for athletes is setting them up to be successful and to continue being superstars in their next chapter of life. And that's not necessarily something that I promote to the athletes themselves, because a lot of them don't want to hear about when their playing days are over. And I get that. I remember feeling that same way. I thought skating would be my world forever. It was the only identity that I knew. But then one day I fell and it was game over. And then I had to figure it out. And so with NIL and the way that we teach to be successful with it, it's so much more about learning what makes you the awesome human that you are, other than being really good at soccer or volleyball or gymnastics or basketball. What makes you the awesome human you are in all the other ways? Because that's what's going to make you stand out in the NIL game, that uniqueness and leaning into it. And it's also going to help you self-realize the identity and true value you have as a person, aside from just being good at your sport, so that you know what you have to give to the world, even when you're not playing anymore. And so some of the work, the deep diving work we do in Influential Athlete Academy, is work that I think a lot of adults could even benefit from, to be perfectly honest with you, because most people don't ever do that real self-assessment and real deep look. What do I care about? What are my unique qualities? What makes me different? We're all trying to fit in constantly. And we say, don't fit in. You fit in, you're going to blend in, right? Whatever makes you unique and stand out, which is the opposite of how all of us feel in high school, right? We just want to fit in. But what's unique and what makes you stand out is your superpower. Let's lean into that. Let's really perfect it, and then use that as leverage to find you success.
I love that. This is the Winning Wellness Podcast. My goal is to help people improve their wellness, right? And that could be, and from why I originally reached out to you, I'm thinking, oh, financial wellness. That's a huge part of, help the kid make sure they've got food in their bellies and clothes on their backs but when you talk about this identity stuff, I'm like, that's got to be so good for their psyche. And watching athletes' careers end, I was just talking to one of my hockey players the other day. He's been playing hockey for close to 20 years, and and he's going to the ice rink yesterday to like turn in gear because his career's over. And he doesn't know the next time he'll skate, or if it's maybe some men's rec league, after a few more years, something like that. But this stuff, it's really, the identity thing is a really big factor in that wellness. And unfortunately, a lot of times they play through their time at the university and then they're gone in the wind. And we only know that they're struggling and kind of isolated and things like that. So when you talk about all this, reinforcing their skill sets and that they're more than just the sport they play, I would have reached out even faster if I knew we were going to talk about those things. And
I think there's so much of a push for mental health awareness for athletes these days. I mean, much more so than when I was competing. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I think acknowledging that athletes very much so struggle from mental health issues, but many times are even more afraid than the average person to speak up because of stigma or being benched or whatever it might be, right? Thinking of being weak or something. And I think all of that is great to talk about that, to let people realize this is not taboo. You can talk about it. It's okay to not feel great. It's okay to seek out resources and seek out help. I think that's wonderful, and I think there's a place for that, no question. And anytime I identify somebody I'm working with who I feel like they could use professional help in that realm, because I am not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, nor do I ever pretend to be, I can refer them out to that. What I think helps the majority of people I work with is this stuff. It's not just being aware of mental health and it's okay to struggle, but it's actually figuring out other stuff that they can lean into and really identify as their value. And that helps that much more. And so I'm glad that you recognize that, because I see the transformation happen, and the coolest part is that a lot of times if my kids are local and I meet up with them after our academy to deliver their NIL success toolkit and things like that, their parents will come. I always invite the parents. I'm like, your parents can be on your call. I don't care. I record everything. But the parents come, and the tears in the parents' eyes, because they not only recognize the transformation that's happened in terms of confidence exuding and things like that, but they see that their daughter, because I work with private clients with females, they see that their daughter now actually realizes the value she has outside of just being a member of this team, whatever that team is. And like, that's the most beautiful thing. And I'm like, okay, we're on the right path. Like, that reaffirms to me that, yep, you're doing good in the world. And that's what I want to do.
Fantastic. It sounds amazing. I would we'll check back in a little while here. Let my daughter grow up a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll reach back out then. Are you aware? Do you have any comment? We can talk about this or just skip right over it, because I don't have much to say other than the fact that I'm aware that there's like a $2.8 billion lawsuit going on. There's gonna be a decision soon on back paying former NCAA athletes.
Yeah, for 10 years
Do you
at the
want
T1 level. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a big lawsuit, big time class action lawsuit. It was supposed to be settled, they said originally first quarter of this year, but more plaintiffs have jumped in and all sorts of stuff. So it's called NCAA versus House. House is the last name of a player who originally filed the lawsuit. Again, a lot of schools, different other players have jumped on board. This is what's going to pretty much across the board change the NIL landscape on a more permanent basis. So right now people call it the Wild West. I kind of take issue with that, because I feel like that's just kind of like a cop out. Again, you're going off the media headlines, right? You're not actually like looking at the 99% of what's actually happening. But there's nothing that's federally mandated when it comes to student athletes making money with their name, image, and likeness. Every state has different rules. Every university and college has different rules. Every high school has different rules. So this NCAA versus House lawsuit that has already been like provisionally approved by the judge who's overseeing the case. I think the final approvals, they keep pushing the date back, so don't quote me on this, but I think end of April, they're now saying. This would create that revenue share model where, and this is only part of the lawsuit, where as it stands as of today, universities can't directly pay an athlete to come play for them. Can't do that, which is why all these collectives have formed. These collectives are like third-party arms of the universities that are made up of, they collect funds and from donors, alumni, businesses, and they're the ones who kind of help facilitate deals for some of the university's athletes. So it's not the university, it's the collective. They kind of skirt the rules this way. With this lawsuit that's about to be settled, a lot of universities, especially in the Power Five, had said, look, we're all doing this. We're all skirting the rules by utilizing these collectives. Let's just call it what it is. And let's just be transparent about it and actually allow universities to pay their athletes. And so that's part of this. So each university will have basically a salary cap. It'll be a percentage of something, right? Like $20 million that they can pay out every year to their athletes. And there's also roster caps that are coming. So they're lessening the number of people on all the different teams. So that's coming as well as part of this lawsuit. And so it'll be interesting to see when all of this shakes out and there's some more like across the board rules that exist. Because right now the NCAA has some interim rules that exist, but nothing that's like crazy. Everyone is kind of like doing their own thing. It'll be interesting to see what happens with these collectives, because there might not really be a need for them anymore. Will they kind of be absorbed into the school? Will they kind of go away? So I'm kind of interested to watch what happens with that model, because it was born 3.5 years ago. Now it's going to be changing. And so it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens.
It is it's an interesting time, and so being around athletes and seeing how much they sacrifice and how much they work, I'm excited for them. I think a lot of them deserve some compensation. Is that they're sacrificing, they're in here, they're putting work in. So it's I just sit back and I'm like, oh, that's what's going on now. I'm like,
oh, I know. It's hard to keep up. It's hard to keep up. And I think, I mean, unless you're in it every day like we are, I mean, that's one of the reasons why institutions want to partner with us, is because they don't want to have to keep up on all of this stuff. And they want to make sure that they're sharing the correct information with their student athletes and families. And so instead of trying to navigate it all themselves, they lean on us to kind of do the navigation for them. I think what's interesting too is with this whole back pay, because that's part of the lawsuit, like you mentioned, whatever you mentioned, it's like almost $3 billion. I wonder if the NCAA is going to end up going bankrupt. And what happens if that happens? So we are living in interesting times. I think over the next 2-3 years, a lot of the NIL chaos, if you want to call it that, will be ironed out. And it'll be interesting to see what rises to the top and what doesn't.
I agree.
Yeah.
Maybe shifting away from all the fantastic material we've covered so far. If I could ask you, as dust off your athlete hat and a little bit. This is the Winning Wellness Podcast. We want to talk about how people might win their wellness, whether they're sick or they have anything that they just don't feel good. We want to make them feel better. But we also like winning. We're associated with athletes. And if you are in a position to be competitive and you're out there trying to do some winning, you know a thing or two about that. Could you tell us a little bit about something that maybe led to some of your athletic success? Things that athletes aren't doing enough of, they need to do more of?
I think one of the most beneficial things for athletes is making sure they're not the best person in the room. I always performed better when I was in an ice rink, surrounded and on the ice with people who were better than me. I always also like being a big fish in a small pond. And so it's fun when you're the best one out there. But there's no one to push you to constantly better yourself. Now, you might have a really good internal motivator, right? That most people don't. Motivation ebbs and flows. And so if you're surrounded by greatness, your ability to also be great goes up, in my opinion. I also think that one of the things that I've learned as I've gotten older, and then I look back on my athletic days and I'm like, oh, I wish I wasn't, so naive or ignorant, is like you mentioned, it's that 1% better. every day if you can achieve that, right? If you say you're going to get up at 5 a.m. because you're going to walk for 30 minutes and then you're going to lift for 45, don't only do that 4 days a week, because day 5, 6, and 7, you're like, does it really matter? I don't really see any progress. It matters. Unfortunately, you don't see the success of that right away because it doesn't happen in the short term. It happens in the long term. But there's a reason why Kobe was as good as he was. There's a reason why Steph Curry is as good as he is. And they talk about it. People used to get on Kobe's case all the time. Oh, he's such a ball hog. Well, Kobe would talk about it. He would talk about the fact that he was always the first in the gym and the last to leave. And so when it came to 1 second left on the clock, and either he can make the shot or pass to somebody else to make it, he's like, I'm taking that shot every time because I know what time they left the gym. I know what time they got to the gym. And I'm not taking a chance. I'm the person who put in the more time, and I'm going to take the shot. And so he was always willing to do more than everybody else, which is that whole Mamba mentality thing. Because if you just do as much as everybody else, if you practice the same as everybody else, if you compete the same as everybody else, you're going to be just like everybody else. If you want to be that superstar, you have to do things differently than everybody else. And it sucks. And there's a thing called resistance that every single one of us feel every day. It's that thing that makes you not want to get out of bed. It's the thing that makes you not want to make that phone call. It's the thing that makes you not want to do whatever it is that you have to do that your brain's trying to convince you not to. Most people give in to the resistance. That's why most people never achieve their goals and dreams. Oh, I'll do that tomorrow. Oh, I'll do that later. Well, 40 years goes by and you're still waiting to do it later. So if you just decide upon a routine, stick to it, and we have something called the 21-day challenge within Influential Athlete Academy that I give to my girls when they're done with the private coaching with me. I'm not their parole officer, so I'm not checking in on them if they're completing this. This is on them if they want to better themselves. But I tell them, you don't practice what I've taught you, you've just wasted your money. You've totally just wasted it. So the 21-day challenge has you pick 4 things, 4 actions that you are going to consistently do every single day for 21 days. It's 3 weeks. You can do it, right? Every single day for 3 weeks. I don't care if that's making a phone call every day to somebody you have to do. I don't care if that's raising your hand in class because you're never the person that speaks out. Whatever the actions are that you choose are your actions. And if you do that for 21 days, you'll be amazed at the progress that you've made. Then you're going to choose 4 new actions and do those for another 21 days. Or if you suck the first 21 days, do those same 4 again, right? So it's all about creating habits that end up driving what your characteristics are. So if you want to be a superstar, you got to have superstar characteristics and habits. And there's only one way to do it, is to actually just do it, which sucks and nobody wants to hear, but that's what happens.
I had an instructor who was a sports psychologist, and he said there's decisions and there's decisions. And decisions are nothing. You have to make decisions. You have to go out and take action.
Yeah, and you'll never feel ready. No one ever does. Yeah. You'll never feel ready. Timing's never perfect. Just do it. You know what? You're going to suck the first time you do it. If you accept that before you even start, then you'll have a better time getting back up and doing it again and doing it again. And by the 100th time, you'll be pretty good. But you can't get to 100 unless you start with 1. That's the hard work that nobody wants to do, which is why superstars are hard to find, because they're the ones who put in the work, right? There's only so far that talent can take you. It's the work that really gets you there.
As we're talking about your life before and after athletics, no longer, from what I understand, no longer a competitive athlete, but what are you doing now? You're a mama bear of 3 cubs.
Yep.
What do you do to stay well and fit and take care of yourself?
Yeah, so I got really injured when I skated, so I can't run or anything like that because I had a bad pelvis injury, which is something that never fully heals and whatever they tell me. But I like to get up every day at 5:30. I walk, so I have a desk treadmill, one that just slides under my desk and my desk raises. And believe me, every day when my alarm goes off, I am like, oh, I do not want to get out of bed. Every day. It never gets easier. I'm never, okay, ready for the day. Like never, ever. But you do it, right? So I get up, I walk for 30 minutes. I take care of emails and do that sort of stuff while I'm walking. I'm Catholic, and so I try to pray the rosary every day. And a lot of times I'll just do that when I'm walking. I'll actually even stick it on YouTube and I'll just kind of like pray along because it keeps me on like the right number because I never know what beat I'm on. So none of us are perfect, right? Like we all just do our best. And then I try to lift like 4 days a week because I think when it comes to females, especially, I think the less active I am, the more tired I am. So the more I walk, the more I'm lifting, things like that, it actually provides energy and it puts me in a lot better mood, which is crazy because like people say that all the time, like, oh, work out, it makes you feel better. People are like, like I think that, but then it does. And you're like, okay, I guess they're right, So I just think like that's the self-care for me is if I need a moment to get away from the kids and get away from the chaos, which happens on the regular, I just go for a walk. I try to get my heart rate up a little bit. I try to just kind of like clear my head and be active in some way, shape, or form. You don't have to every day, you don't have to, run for an hour, even if it's 5 minutes, just start with 5 minutes and see where you get from there is kind of my motto. Even on the days when I just don't want to do it, I'm like, I'm just going to do it for 5 minutes. And before I know it, it's 20 minutes, right? So it's just a matter of starting.
This has been great. Thank you for letting me steal some of your time, bug you about every topic I can think of.
I love it.
The answer can be no because we've covered so much already. Before we say goodbye, is there anything else you want to share? And if anybody wants to reach out to you, how could they do that?
So our website is influentialathlete.com. There you can read more about my bio. You can read about our Influential Athlete Academy and the 4-phase process that we put you through. You can book a call if you're interested as a female athlete for private coaching with me. You can book a call. It's a free 30-minute NIL consultation. So you talk directly to me. We talk about your specific situation, what your goals are, what your needs are, and then you can decide for yourself whether or not you think that working with me would be beneficial to you. Or if you would rather go kind of the DIY version for yourself and just kind of navigate the academy on your own time at your own pace, you can simply buy Influential Athlete Academy digital course right there on our website. There's 2 different options, private coaching or the digital course. And you get access immediately for 12 months. And you get bi-weekly live calls with me as well. So if you have questions or you need help kind of navigating through a certain part or working through some of the exercises that we provide in the 50-page digital workbook, you have access to me during those live calls. So we try to do everything we can to respect our athletes' time because they don't have very much of it. It's very valuable. I understand that being a former athlete. And so my goal is to get you as marketable and NIL ready as possible, as quickly as possible. So influentialathlete.com, either schedule your free consultation with me for our private coaching, or you can simply purchase the digital course if you're just ready to go and want to kind of do it at your own pace.
Incredible. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yes, the podcast is over. However, Stephanie and I continued speaking, and she went on to share a little bit more about the Influential Athlete Academy. And so stick around to listen to her explain that a little bit before the show is over.
That I can just email you this PDF so that you have it. But this shows you what our 4-phase process of the academy is. So the first phase is laying that foundational knowledge, which is so important before you navigate through the other phases. So this is called Navigate NIL. And really the goal of this is to build that foundational NIL knowledge that sets the stage for success at all the other phases. And here we talk about the evolution of influence, understanding that influence is not just being an influencer on social media. It's been around forever, and businesses and brands have been partnering with influential people to get more eyeballs on their products or services. And so We talk about that so that they understand this is not just about social media. We talk about NIL 101, which is, again, we talk when we do licenses with universities, it's specific to your university, your state, so that the athletes understand exactly how to stay compliant within the rules that exist for NIL where they are. Then lastly, we start talking about becoming that influential athlete and really defining that purpose beyond money, clarifying that why question, and then setting their vision for their NIL journey. The second phase is all about building their personal brand. This is about really establishing something that's strong and marketable in terms of a brand identity. We talk about having a growth mindset, shifting that perspective from athlete to really athlete entrepreneur. That unique positioning, which is identifying the things that make you stand out and how to leverage those things. So you are somebody that businesses want to align themselves with, that you do have a uniqueness about you. And then we talk about intentional action and really defining what people say about you, what people think about you, and what people know about you, because all of that is your personal brand, and taking strategic action to really shape that perception. So how are you showing up on social media? How are you showing up in person? Who are you surrounding yourself with? Right? Because if you're surrounding yourself with losers, people are automatically going to associate you as being a loser, even if you're not, just by pure association. So really taking all of those things into account and making them really think about those things. What accounts are you following on social media? Are you filling your brain with toxic junk in and day out, right? And eliminating that stuff so that we can just stay on that positive direction that we want to be going in. Phase 3 is all about transforming personal presence. So this is my favorite part of the academy, because this is really where all my TV background comes in. We talk about mastering your body language, how to use it effectively to elevate your message and not distract from it. We talk about how to use your voice effectively to communicate your message. And then we talk about on-camera performances, whether it's giving post-game interviews, whether it's doing social media campaigns for businesses, but how to actually sound professional, look and sound your best when you're on camera. Phase 4, we put it all together. We secure success beyond your sport. This is where we talk about traditional media appearances, because the more you can get yourself in the media, the more your perceived value goes up. And there are ways to do that. I've been in TV for 20 years. I know all the secrets to that. Then we talk about brand partnerships. We take your personal brand that we developed in phase 2, and we help you identify businesses that you authentically align with when it comes to your personal brand. And we teach you how to pitch to those businesses, what to say and how to say it. And then the final piece is that giving back piece, where we believe that the biggest benefit of having influence is the ability to have an impact. And when you have a positive impact on the world has a way of repaying you. And businesses recognize people who are doing good things. And businesses want to align with people who are doing good things because it makes them look good. And so it all comes full circle.
Thank you for listening to the Winning Wellness Podcast. Please keep in mind that all views expressed within the show are not a reflection of any universities or organizations that I may be affiliated with. If you have any questions or suggestions for future shows, please reach out through Instagram, where I can be found with the title name of Mitch Schwartzman.